Welcome to the Business and Bud Show. You know it's time. Start thinking like a winner when you get online. Streaming audio and video to get you primed for a future of success, a life you design. Business and Buds is the online show for people who want to learn about creating a thriving business and a thriving network. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Business and Buds Show. Welcome back, everybody. It's Business and Buds Show. I am producer Pat, and we've got the Michael Bryant on. He's having his morning joint today. There he is. He already microdosed on his shroomies. We were talking about perspective this morning. What is your perspective on things? How are you approaching the day? And how are you using other lenses or other perspectives or other points of view to succeed in life? Because you are only one point of view. You are one perspective. So how can I kind of make some shifts based on what's working for someone else or what I'm hearing somebody else say or advice or whatever? Different points of view are essential. If you're following all kinds of people online and you all think the same way, you're not really opening up yourself to other perspectives and other points of view. I would encourage you to start following maybe some people that don't think the same way as you, maybe even some people that think the opposite of you.
Sure. I mean, you can follow me at the Michael J. Bryan on Instagram.
That's right.
Because I certainly don't share the same viewpoints as a lot of people. I mean, I do things, I would say, quite differently than most people do at all. I mean, the conventional way to build an 8-figure brand is to have an office and to have a team and everybody is centrally located and all of this stuff.
And meetings at 8:03 every day.
Yeah, and that was never part of the idea for me. I always wanted to build a team that was self-sufficient and could work on their own anywhere in the country or in the world, because now, if I'm able to mix time zones with things, I'm able to actually have, 24 hours of actual workflow a day. So, whenever our US team is working here, our Philippine team is working at the opposite time. And it's like, now you are opening the doors to leverage. And to me, that's what this entire business game is about, is leverage. And basically buying your time. So let me give you a for instance here. Like whenever we first started, we only had me, Devin, my father-in-law. So 3 people allocating their time. Now, across everything, we probably have 40 something people. Now I'm getting 40 times 8 a day, 320 hours a day of work from people, versus before we were only really able to achieve about 24 hours of work, if you're talking about an 8-hour day.
Right.
So, being able to leverage your time exponentially is huge. It's absolutely huge.
Right.
So whenever COVID hit,
you have me. This sounds so bad. I'm talking and it's coming out of your speaker and coming back into the recording. It sounds so bad in my headphones. Okay. Do you have AirPods or something?
Yeah, hold on one second.
I can just cut that part out. But it's super rough.
Hold on. Is this better?
Yeah, I feel like, because now it's not playing out of the speaker. Because when I talk, it plays out of the speaker and then it feeds back into the system.
Gotcha. So
yeah, you're better. Good. Yes, this is better.
Okay. I don't remember what the fuck I said.
So anyway, you were talking about when it was first your team, it was just 3 of you. Now you've got teams working literally around the clock. And so your perspective has changed on how to run your business. When you're a solopreneur or you're just getting things started, I mean, you've got to do a lot of things. You got to be the accountant and you got to be the
Mhm.
invoice guy, and you got to be the email guy and the appointment setter, and you have to do the
And the
work and sell the
closer.
work and fulfill the work and be the closer. I mean, you are literally
You're a
everything.
one-man show.
And like we were talking with Owen the other day, at some point to really be the absolute best at what you do, well, how are you going to fulfill all those other obligations that you have and focus in on what you're the best at? Well, I mean, number one, it's going to take cash flow. I know a lot of people these days are talking about how we shared that Dave Portnoy, that funny little thing he was doing on the side of the street where he asked that guy with his little mask on and his little, anti-capitalism flag if he just like hates rich people and stuff. And it was funny, the guy's response, because he probably wouldn't hate rich people so much if he was rich. Was really what
Correct.
it came.
Well,
his perspective was different than the Barstool Sports Presidente guy, because the Barstool Sports Presidente guy had money and the other guy didn't. And so the other guy's opinion was, I'm exploiting people hourly to build something and put myself on top. When really another perspective to that person's opinion might be, well, Portnoy is employing a lot of people and helping them pay their bills and feed their families so that they can all be successful
Correct.
together. Which perspective do you have?
Correct.
So again, perspective is very important.
Obvious.
Well, yeah. I'm kind of talking to the audience there, but your perspective in life, right? Your perspective in life is going to determine a lot of what your results are. A lot of what your habits are going to be determined by what's your perspective. If your perspective is, hey, it's okay that I'm this way in this certain area, and you don't care to take action to fix that, don't be mad when that's the result you get 6, 12 months later, 6, 12 years later.
It's,
Mike is smoking joints.
True.
Mike is smoking joints and making money right now because his perspective is set up a certain way. And so, he's got an e-commerce store that works around the clock that makes him money 24 hours a day so that he can enjoy a nice warm joint this morning and record a little episode of his show before he goes to meet with a, potential investment partner on some huge business ventures today for lunch.
Yeah, and I will go dressed exactly like this.
Right.
That's the other thing. I think once you have qualified yourself as a serious person, certain times there's going to be times where you need to put on a black tie and a suit and do that sort of thing. But I typically, like, if I'm meeting somebody for the first time, which I'm not with this person, but if I'm meeting somebody for the first time, I will try to put on, a dress shirt or something like that. And because I'm covered in tattoos, and at the end of the day, first impressions do matter. So, if I'm going to meet with someone and they have no idea what I look like or anything like that, I will cover up, and then if the meeting is going well, I'll roll my sleeves up halfway. And then I try and gauge their reaction, because then I know if I also want to work with them. Like, to me, that is like a telltale sign on if somebody is going to be, agreeable to work with, because at the end of the day, like, I am a little abrasive. Like, it's just how it is. Like, I don't have a different way that I speak. It's, like,
well, right. And so
I say the same things that I would say in front of you or the audience to a hedge fund manager.
Right. And so it's important to remember that the perspective of the potential client or the potential relationship that you want to build is going to be based off how they see the potential that you bring to the situation. So once you get into certain circles of people that are producing at a high level, those people don't care what your tattoos generally look like or where, your tattoo is located. Those people are thinking about what
or what
kind of
school
potential
you went to.
Yeah. What kind of
Or what
potential does
school
this
you
guy
went to.
bring to this, or where you're from? I'm from this area of Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri, where, and I was talking to this about with someone the other day. I love St. Louis, but St. Louis is a great place to be from. And that might sound like a diss, but it's not a diss. There are huge advantages to leaving that area. The people that are in that area generally are from that area. They grew up with a certain perspective. They grew up with a certain point of view.
Can you hear me?
Yes. So can you hear me now? You're eventually going to have to switch to a computer with a microphone. Mike's on the ghetto tip with the mobile phone thing. Fucking annoying, dude.
God damn it.
Yo.
I am so ready for our deck to be finished, painted. So that way, like, that's like where I sit outside because it's like, it has great lighting and
Right.
I just like sitting there, but it's currently being painted and should be finished today. But
that's okay. Shit happens. And that's what I was saying was where I'm from, it's a pretty small town. It's a big town, but it's a small town. When you leave that area and you see this entire world that we have to explore, what you realize when you go back to an area like that is that a lot of people that grew up in an area, that stayed in an area, that are kind of their mental capacity and their mindset is shaped by that area because in an area like that, it's not progressive. I generally don't use that word too much, but progressive means you're thinking outside the box. You're moving the ball forward in an area where everyone's from that area and grew up in that area, and their parents and their grandparents all went to school in that area. And it becomes one of the topics of conversation is where you went to high school, and then everybody's cousins. How much room for growth is there in an area where everyone is in one little bubble? You've got to get outside of those bubbles. You just have to, or your perspective is shaped by that bubble. And that can become, especially for someone like me, that becomes a huge negative thing. Because it's like any ideas or any thoughts or concepts or growth that wants to happen outside that bubble essentially gets attacked. Because it's like, oh, well, you can't really do that. You're going to leave the bubble?
Well, I mean, dude, that happened to me.
Yeah, I'm leaving the bubble.
Like, that happened to me whenever, like, I dropped out of school. My parents thought that it was literally the end of the world.
Yeah, their bubble burst.
Yeah. And now I have not been asked if I was going to go back to college for the past, like, 4 or 5 years. But
why
they're
would
just like, I wouldn't, because I can buy time and buy, like, my way up and learn from the people that I want to learn from, specifically, individually. Because at the end of the day, any business professional that's gotten to a level of success, all that they want to do is help the next person, get some sort of financial freedom, because it actually feels really good once you know how to make your own money and you don't have to rely on anybody else. There's a certain confidence that comes around with that, because you control your destiny.
Well, and we were talking about that earlier, even before we got on a call, and it kind of triggered us to record again, was that if you're happy and you're doing what you like to do, and it's covering your bottom line when it comes to numbers, how much more successful are you going to be in the future when you're continually getting better and better and better and better and better and better and better at what you do, and you're supporting yourself doing it, the happiness and the fulfillment that comes from that is there is no number
Correct.
that you could give me to give that up.
Correct.
If that makes sense.
Correct.
There is no number anyone could offer Pat Hilton to sell out on his dream.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference that I'm seeing now. I'm going to be 40 years old in a couple years. That's the difference I see now from me at 40 and so many people I grew up with at 40 that come on my page and are like, it's so amazing to see you still doing this. I used to do news skits on the high school TV. We had a high school TV channel called KCBC. And I love giving props to my high school because I'm glad I went there because, again, gave me a great perspective on discipline, on manning up. Whenever I did something wrong and I got busted for it and went and cried to mommy, she was like, good. I paid them to kick your ass.
That's how my parents were too.
Yeah, I pay them to kick your stupid ass. So next time, shut up.
Yep.
Anyway, we had this TV channel called KCBC, right? And so it was like the students' news or like the students' Saturday Night Live, right? So we'd like interview teachers and like the moms club would be setting something up in the gym. I'd be like interviewing someone from the moms club. And so people see now, 20 years later, me making funny news skits on Facebook, and they're like, this dude 20 years later is still
fucking around,
living that dream, still never gave up, still found a way to pay the bills doing it, still has the perspective that I'm willing to die before I give this up. And a lot of people say that they're willing to fight that hard for it. But I would say that a lot of people say that. Most aren't willing to fight that hard. Most are not willing to fight that hard and put it all on the line. And we were talking this morning, had a couple really hot months. And this month's still hot, but like I wouldn't consider it I still have 10 days left, so this could change. But I would not call it as hot as two of the biggest months I've had, which is okay. But am I going to have a beat up myself negative perspective? Or am I going to look at it and be like, it's already working. It's only going to get past those numbers moving forward if I continue to put the work in. Again, dude, perspective, you guys, is so important in anything. And it goes back to even the funny little Han Solo jokes. If he had the perspective of, we're going to get our asses blown out of the sky, he never would have survived. You know, he got frozen by Darth Vader at the end of the movie anyway. He kind of got fucked anyway. But in that part of the movie, he got away because his perspective was, I'm flying into the fire. Sometimes people see the fire and they're like, and they hesitate. And then that's why they get burned. In the 3 seconds that you could have just gotten through before it spread, you waited and then you got burned.
Yep.
The people who are willing to throw the punch when the opening's barely there are the people that get through to the other side. There's going to be a lot of people over the next 5 years that start building businesses online and using their talents online and putting out stuff online.
I hope this serves as an education to them. I
do too.
I know that I'm typically stoned and sometimes I'm abrasive and like, callous.
But you're still taking action.
But like, we've showed up every single day and we're doing it. So it's like,
right. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for people that show up every day. That was what I was saying. People who are sleeping on the opportunity to use the internet or still think that the internet is some kind of thing that doesn't matter are going to be left behind.
No doubt. No doubt.
Because the internet, even the playing field for entertainers like me, I don't need Hollywood or Time Warner or Universal or CBS or American Idol. I never did, but I sure as hell don't need them in 2020. All I need is a computer, my guitar, my microphone, and
Laptop.
put myself out there. And now here we come.
Yep.
So
Yeah. No,
perspective.
it's something that I try to work on every day. I mean, it seems that the more that things grow, the bigger the problems always will be. So if you just have perspective and instead you have gratitude that you have the opportunity to solve those problems, it kind of changes the perspective on the way that you look at it. And like, I could be just as upset that we lost that reserve money this, like, in the past 7
Right.
days, or I could be grateful at the fact that we had the opportunity to be fortunate enough to lose that much and then still continue to grow at the rate that we had.
Right.
So,
and you guys got to also realize that where someone else is at in their journey is different from you. For you, for
It could be
me, that's 3 or 4K. For Mike, it's 200K. But the principle or the bottom line of the mentality that we're trying to beat into your brains today, because we have to beat it into our fucking brains too. This isn't just like we walk around hopscotching, eating ding dongs, freaking
this
easy
isn't the first time that we've lost money.
That's what I mean.
The first time that I've lost money. Like, every time that you want to scale and you want to get bigger, the problems that you are going to take on are going to be bigger.
Yep.
Like, I was on the phone last night with my mentor, Ryan Blair, and he was explaining to me how, he grew one of his companies and then it got hit with a $275 million class action lawsuit.
Good God.
And it just made my perspective of 200K. I was like, whoa, okay. Like, that is something that would make you want to vomit every single day whenever you're waking up. You know what I mean? But instead, he just kept growing the company, and, they settled and did whatever they had to do.
Right.
I don't know all the nuts and bolts of it. So,
Right.
if we're fortunate enough to have him on here, he can explain that story. But perspective, again, like how you were talking about leaving your bubble, whether it's like leaving your bubble on social media or leaving your bubble, like in real life, just picking up and fucking moving somewhere else and starting something new, that forces your brain to think differently. It forces you to become more creative. It forces you to problem solve better, and it forces you to learn. So,
and it forces you to execute, because now what you've done is you have forced yourself to fight harder to deliver, because who wants to go backwards?
Correct.
And some people might be like, that's not going backwards. Going back, it's okay. It's always home. It's going back.
Yep.
To the bubble.
Yep. So he told me,
don't go back to the bubble.
He told me yesterday an interesting statistic, that meditation increases your IQ by up to 23%. And he was like, in business, in life, everything, he's like, if you could tell me that I could have a 23% advantage, like, of course I would.
Yeah. What's the return of investment on that 30 minutes of time every day now?
Right.
Huge. Yeah. We should probably start meditating on the show.
He does on his. He actually does on his.
No way.
He has a call, and every day at noon Eastern, he has a live meditation call that he does every single day with his group, which is pretty cool.
That's heavy.
I'm going to miss it today, but it's something to experience. And, but no, it's changing. Like, I would have never meditated before if someone never told me to.
Well, right. It's like there's a lot of things I wouldn't be doing right now if I wouldn't have forced myself out of certain bubbles and into situations that were uncomfortable. What it also comes down to is there are safety zones and comfort zones that you get into in life. And unless you push yourself outside of those comfort zones, Growth only comes from uncomfortable situations. If you're comfortable all the time, how much are you even growing at all?
Yeah, for certain.
You're not. You're not. I was by far probably the worst business person that ever played at that 10X2 event, but I'm a way better business person now because I made it happen.
Well, that and because you
I was
surrounded
like
yourself.
the voice of the voiceless at that event.
Yeah, but you surrounded yourself with other business owners.
Right. And
That
they
share-
beat it into my brain that I've got to change, again, my perspective in all these areas of my life if I really want to make sustainability with my talents.
I pretty much only on Instagram follow business people
Me too.
and like a couple of like weed pages, and then I think that there's probably like some hot celebrity chicks that like
Oh yeah, you
follow.
have some
But like
mass on your page.
I actually unfollowed a lot of that because I only wanted to see things. I think I literally only followed like 600 people, but I only wanted to see things that were related to business and problem solving and
Right.
expanding my network in a way that I wanted to see. So it's just one way that you can control the narrative in your own brain.
That's true. How can I get outside of certain bubbles in my head or in my life or in my surroundings and
Or
get
on your
into
phone.
get into new ways of thought, new paths, new growth opportunities? I'm telling you, sitting around at the tavern that you've been sitting at 12 years, and I know this from experience because I used to sing at bars. And I would see the same guys every Tuesday. And I would see the same guys every Friday at the other place. And I'd see the same girls every other Saturday at the other place. And I'm talking all over the country, I've done this. And what I noticed is a lot of times those people are still at those taverns today.
Yep.
And
well, maybe not.
People...
They're probably closed because of Corona.
Right. But my point is that it's a mindset thing. At some point, are you going to advance beyond that? Or is that it for you? And if that's it for you, that's great. And if that's your escapism, there's nothing wrong with that. But I would encourage you to think about if you're trying to grow.
I'm also hoping that any fucking person that's watching this show is looking and has a growth mindset.
Right.
Because
and that's what I'm
saying. You probably aren't watching the show anyways.
Right.
And if you don't have one, I don't like get one or don't follow us.
But my point is that no, it's not. But my point is that if you're sitting on that bar stool and you want to change, you can. And I will always speak to those people because I've met those people and they've looked me in the eyes and asked me, how do you do it every week? And my answer was always the same. I do this every week because this is not the final destination. I do this every week and play as hard as I do and show up an hour early and execute the way that I do because I am training myself for the next thing.
Yep.
That was always my perspective. That's why I was there.
Well, that's why you're here now, too. And that's why you're going to get more podcasts. And if you want to book Pat for a podcast, all that you have to do is reach out to whatever your Gmail is. I don't know. I don't have it.
Right. Yeah. Just send us a message on Facebook or send me a message or Mike a message. But my point is it's just like, instead of focusing on I'm here and this is where I am and this is hard. Welcome to the club. It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
But where am I going? You've got to ask yourself, where am I going? And what are the steps that it's going to take to get there? And that's what you need to start doing today in preparation for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months down the line. And we're going to probably hit this subject
Let's
lot.
Actually talk about that like live time right now.
But again, perspective.
I want to make a podcast studio down here. So
you should.
I need to figure out how, and maybe
so you're not randomly walking around the fucking city of Pittsburgh in every single episode.
Hey, it's only 2 so far. The other ones I was seated. And I'm hoping that tomorrow's episode I'll be seated as well. But no, it's I actually think that kind of makes a podcast like this a little bit interesting because uh, number one, that's actually how I talk and how I focus best is by getting up and moving and changing scenery.
That's why I have to stand.
Yeah. Okay. So
I never sit down when I do anything.
Similarly, so
Like, you'll never see me sit down on this show. I will never fucking sit ever. Never. It's never going to happen.
I think that I would probably rather have a standing desk in there.
That's what I have.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, that's what I have to figure out. Like, I have to figure out how much do I want to actually invest into this show too.
Right.
So, depending upon the feedback that we start to get back, that's going to be dependent upon how much more money I'm willing to invest into production, into building out a better studio, into,
right.
Maybe even needing to pay guests to get them on our show to take an hour of their time because I respect them as a business person and I'm investing into them. So if you look at that sort of like transparency, I don't think that, you're going to find another show that will be like as real about, what's actually happening right now.
Well, yeah. Yeah. We don't want to be fake at all. That's the whole point of the thing. And that's why, again, back to kind of the topic at hand here is your thought process, your perspective, your growth mindset. It all comes from how am I able to move my lens a little bit to another angle and look at things from another angle, a perspective, point of view, lens. Everybody's got their certain lens they're looking at stuff from, and it's like not everybody sees things through that lens. There is a 360-degree world here that's spinning through the middle of friggin' space, and your little bubble lens tunnel view is not reality for anyone but you. And you might even be convincing yourself that that's how it is when it's really not.
For sure.
So I think it's important to step outside of yourself and to look at things from all different types of angles. We were talking about this the other day, how this guy chewed me out. I was dating his daughter. This guy chewed me out, told me I was a knucklehead and a loser and stuff like that. And looking back on it, the reason why certain things he said hurt my feelings were because I was not in the best place in a lot of areas of life. So it wasn't true. I wouldn't say that it was true.
That wasn't what I was saying.
Right.
But there was an essence of truth to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That you also had some self-doubt, which it kind of made that fire for you, right?
Yeah, so it pissed me off because I was working towards certain things that had not happened yet, but was getting dissed by somebody because I hadn't achieved certain results yet. It's like, well, it's not like I'm not doing anything. If I wasn't doing anything, then you telling me I'm a loser would be true. But it's not true because I'm actively putting work in day and day out to get better and to achieve these goals. You asked me what my goals were. I started to respond and you told me it wasn't going to work and I was a loser.
Yep.
It's because you didn't want me messing around with your daughter because you had a certain expectation of what I should be bringing to the table right now if I'm going to be hanging out with your daughter. And thank God.
Well, also,
that didn't work.
As a dad of girls, though, if there was a guy who...
Well, yeah, I got 2 girls now.
Who was being... not in the same vision. Granted, you have a growth mindset. He doesn't. But knowing what you know now is a lot different than probably having his mindset at the same time. So could you understand his perspective
for
that's what I was saying. Yeah, I totally get his perspective now because his perspective was based on the bubble that I described earlier.
correct.
His bubble-based perspective was being burst by someone who was willing to leave that bubble, potentially even with his kid,
Yep.
to be successful at what he wanted to do. And so I think personally, it was like, well, you know, it sounds to me like your goals and your dreams don't include you being here in my bubble. Therefore, I don't approve of it. I actually think that my goals and dreams, just as much as it may have not been established yet, so I didn't have the financial backing to say this is working 100%, also scared him, because if I were to make it the way I'm even potentially making it now, it meant that I would leave the bubble. I'm outside of that bubble now.
Yep.
And I have now at this point proven that guy wrong.
Correct. And
So again, you guys got to understand that there's going to be times in your life where people think, like Michael, for instance, you didn't graduate from college.
Nope. I dropped out
So,
twice.
so a lot of people would look at someone who's, so let's put it into your bubble. A lot of people in Michael's bubble or college days might have said, well, you're not going to really be a great businessman unless you graduate with a business degree or a marketing degree or a degree in economics. Well, how many of those people with degrees in economics are doing things as big as Mike now? Why? Because he was willing to break out of that bubble.
At that time, I was actually just really addicted to drugs, and that's the first time that I dropped out. So full disclosure, it was not some grand fucking thing. I was actually just like crazy addicted to cocaine and strippers, and it was
Normal things to be addicted to.
A different time of my life. But I wouldn't trade any of those experiences that I've had for anything, because it's led me to where I am now. Like, it's cliche, but like
that's where I was going to with it all. I agree with that.
You have to have the shit things happen to you to be able to appreciate the highs and then to navigate the lows again. Like, it has to happen. For me, I live a life of extremes. I've had extreme highs and I've had extreme fucking lows where I've tried to commit suicide a couple of times. But like before all of that shit, like I've just had a life of highs and lows. I mean, I thought that my life whenever I was 13 in Maine was like the best. I was going to like a prep school that my dad was working at, and you know, I was living in a trailer, and I thought that it was like the best fucking thing on earth because I had everything that I needed and I had this great bubble. And then I moved out here and my bubble got broken, and then I was the poorest kid. And then, you know, from there, I just tried to surround myself with people and try and learn from them so that way I could swing the pendulum the other way.
Right. Yeah, man, I love it. And I think that's what it comes down to is some people, they thrive in those bubbles, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I think the other thing is that that's okay. It's just that it can become extremely judgmental when you look at somebody who's got crazy goals or crazy dreams, or they're working towards something and it seems really impossible. And it's like, man, they seem like they're kind of a bum, sleeping on people's floors and driving around the country, sleeping in their car. Yeah. And then you see them a few years later. Bald. Yeah, it does. You see him a few years later on, you know, what used to be MTV or now YouTube, and they've got a 13 million view, you know, song video or something, and it's being used on your favorite, you know, TV show on Netflix. And you think to yourself, wow, maybe I should have looked at that person a little different.
For sure. I mean,
I shouldn't have been so fucking judgmental and said that person's such a loser because they didn't do it the way I'm doing it. Just because you're doing it one way doesn't mean it works for somebody else.
I can kind of tie it back into like even watching my kid. Like my kid, I posted a video the other day on Instagram. I think you saw it, Pat. But like he builds his train tracks in crazy ways, right? But
Right.
for the longest time, he has had trouble speaking, and he didn't qualify for speech therapy. So we brought someone in, and they started working with him on his speech, and he still doesn't say like common phrases like yes please or things like that, but the kid can count to like 100 by fives and by tens and by 20. It's really fun.
Interesting.
It's like he knows every single animal. He knows all of these unique things, and his memorization ability is just like absolutely out of this world. But he struggles with but he doesn't have autism or anything. He just like he knows that like you will say or do what he wants, and like it's a challenge because otherwise he'll freak the fuck out, and you're like, what is going on here? So you
Right.
know he excels in certain things, and then he's not behind, but he's just differently educated for the way that his brain works than other 2-year-olds at the same time.
Right. Right. Which isn't a
So
bad thing. It is
but
a strength in that area.
but me noticing as a parent his strengths and his weaknesses right now, like trying to see how those continue to follow through the rest of his life. Like if he continues to be building stuff all the time, like then college may be the right thing. He may want to be an engineer. Like I would support something like that. But
Absolutely.
like he also may want to have a fucking lemonade stand at the end of the driveway and try to learn how to, like, who knows?
Right.
Like I don't know.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't even know
wild
where I went
times.
with that rant.
No, I know what you were saying. He's got strengths in certain areas, and he needs to focus on those areas. If speaking his if describing what he's doing isn't his strength, it doesn't matter because he can fucking map it out some other way anyway.
Correct.
So
Correct.
again, it's perspective. You might look at some kid like that as they get older and say, well, he doesn't know how to convert his thoughts very well into his speech, but it
Neither
doesn't
does
really
Elon
matter
Musk.
because he's a fucking genius at drawing these designs and graphs and is changing the industry. Who
Have you ever watched
talking
Elon,
about it doesn't change the industry.
Have you ever watched Elon try and articulate his thoughts whenever he's like trying to explain like what is like going on inside of his brain? He can't.
Well, gosh, there's like a
he just
whole
like
universe in there.
bro, he just is like he freezes every time. Like if you watch a Joe Rogan podcast,
I'll have to go back and watch it.
He freezes before like every question, and it takes like his brain like a full second to process like before he's going to even start speaking.
Because he's got 10 different things on his mind.
Yeah.
Because his mind is not trapped by a bubble of thought that is condensed and trained to stay inside this bubble. I'm telling you guys, moving forward, that kind of thought process isn't going to change the world, and it is not the future of where innovators are going.
It's also not an endorsement of mushrooms.
Well, no.
Which,
hey, all right. You know,
I don't know. Owen, chime in here whenever you review this.
You know, you can do it. You can do what you need to do. But yeah, you guys have an open perspective. And again, I mean, listen, reading the books and taking the tests and passing the tests, that worked for my sisters. My sisters are like WashU medical doctors and shit. That didn't work. That didn't work for me.
My wife was second in her class in college, like graduating class. And the only reason she was beat out was she had an A- in something. I forget what the fuck it was.
Right.
But like she is absolutely a book learner, and she is ecstatic to be an 8 to 5 worker. Granted, she's in an essential industry and
Right.
she's high up in her company, but
Right.
like she started in at the bottom. Like she passed up a job with UBS in Manhattan because she didn't want to go to New York. She was like, I think it's gross.
Well, it is gross in New York.
So she passed up that job, and then she had another job offer for like another 6 figures coming out of college, and she took a job starting at like 40K a year, and instead just was like worked her way up because she knew that she was going to be happier,
Right.
you know, because
Well, as I
for
said when
her,
you cut out, New York is gross. I don't
New
care what you
York
New
is
Yorkers
gross.
really don't care if you
It's
guys disagree with me. I've been there and it's gross.
and it's not gross in like
It doesn't
it's
mean it's
gross
not
in the
cool.
sense.
It doesn't mean
Correct,
I didn't enjoy my show that I saw on Broadway.
correct. It is
I
gross in the
wouldn't live
sense
there.
Manhattan is one of my favorite cities to visit, but it is one of my favorite cities to leave.
Oh, yeah. I feel like that about Vegas, and I lived in Vegas for a while. Las Vegas is a great place to visit. It's like I said earlier, St. Louis is a great place to be from.
Yep.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
but you don't want to stay there.
I love the fact
For
that
sure.
I'm from St. Louis. Great place to
I
be
love the
from.
fact that I'm from Maine, but I love the fact that I don't live there anymore.
Right. It's like I'm glad that I lived in California for a while. I think it was awesome that I achieved what I achieved there. But, you know, I'm not going back because that
For
place
certain.
changed so much. But I have a different perspective now because I actually lived there. I actually played gigs all the way up and down the coast. I didn't just
did,
dream
like,
about it
4
in the little
major
bubble
primary states.
and listen to whatever that guy, I got to think of what that guy's name was so I can rip on him in future episodes. But if I would have listened to that guy and stayed in my little bubble, I never would have moved to California and got on stage at 10X Growth Con and built a digital business and moved to Texas where there's 0% state tax and business climate is, in my opinion, better than 99% of places in the country. How would I have that perspective if I never left the bubble? Ladies and gentlemen, figure out what bubble you're in your life and pop out of it. Come on. That's the lesson for the day. You know, maybe you need to eat some fucking mushrooms like Mike and blow those borders down in your brain. That might be the solution for you people.
I take them every day for the most part.
Mike likes mushrooms and weed and all that kind of stuff. Mike can control it. Me, I would probably eat the whole fucking bag because I have in the past. Ladies and gentlemen, I have in the past. So there you go. Break out of that bubble. That's the lesson for the day. Mike's got a lunch meeting. But anything you guys think of, you're in a position in life, you want to advance, you want to grow, send us a message. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out a system that works for you, that's going to break you out of your comfort zone, because that's where the growth is. That's where the growth is. Nothing wrong with having a beer with the ladies on a Friday night at your favorite tavern, but like, what time are you putting in the following day to make sure that you're getting to those goals?
But you can't do it every day either, though.
No, like, you can't.
Some people can. Some people can be functioning, alcoholics or functioning potheads or whatever.
Eventually, it shows up. It shows up in the other areas.
It can. I mean, I've had to take breaks from smoking, but like it doesn't bother me. Like whenever we were in Lake Norman, as opposed to like me being at home, I smoke, I don't know, a couple of times a day. Like I just smoke a joint a couple of times a day. And Lake Norman, because of the environment that I was in, I smoked once a day at night before bed.
Right.
Like I was just, and that's a perspective change. Like it made me realize that even though I was at Lake Norman, I was happier. So I wanted to get all of my work done early in the morning. And then I had the rest of the day to enjoy myself. And I found myself not smoking at that time. So I don't know. I don't know if there's any correlation to that at all. or even where I was going with this in the slightest bit.
Well, no, I
Now I'm
think
just
that,
rambling.
again, no, it goes back to the fact that, and we've talked about this on other episodes, for some people, smoking a little bit or drinking a little bit can break down those borders or those barriers that are trapping their mind or condensing thoughts or creating anxiety. And that can work for a lot of people. For a lot of other people, that can backfire because you start overusing, you start depending on that chemical reaction to make you happy. You're putting your faith in that chemical reaction. You're leaving your happiness within that chemical reaction. Listen, folks, if you can't make yourself happy first, you can't go out and be a happy father for your kids, or you can't be happy for your wife. My wife's been gone for 2 weeks with the kids, and I'm so happy that she has the opportunity to be with the kids and not have to worry about a job right now while our kids grow up. She gets to raise her kids and not worry about money right now, because the time that I put in sleeping on floors and not letting that jackass in his backyard tell me I was a loser has now paid off to the point where my wife
is paying the bills.
It's paying the bills and it's supporting my family. So you guys have got to be willing to take the shots and take the hits that will create 5-10 years from now. Because let me tell you something. When I say 6 months or 12 months, you might make progress. You ain't gonna make it ever. This is a lifelong commitment. Rent is due every day, and you got to do what it takes
100%.
to hit those success bots every single day. So our goal with this, a lot of times, while we might be goofballs and we might be super non-traditional, like we are a couple of bad motherfuckers that aren't going down easy. And in my opinion, this country needs people like this, because we're getting a little soft in some certain categories.
For certain. I don't remember what I was going to say.
I'm about to fucking pull out American flag. But the moral of the story is we're trying to fucking spark and ignite a superpower in people to go out and accelerate their results in different areas, not to just sit on, their laptops and watch this and be like, man, those guys are fired up. I'm fired up. Fuck yeah, Mike and Pat. Like, dude, go do something. Break some fucking walls down in your life. Let's go. That's the goal here. So anyway, Mike, it's been another wonderful episode. You there, buddy? It's been another wonderful episode.
Do you have me?
It's okay. Yeah, I got you. It's been another wonderful show. We're trying to ignite a fire in you guys and get you guys on the same page with where you want to go in your life. Mike cuts in and out like a fucking madman. I'm going to suspend you from phone usage for future episodes.
Bro.
You're going to be suspended from phone use in future episodes.
Good.
Suspended.
Good. Yeah.
We're going to have to put a lifetime ban on Michael's phone usage for podcast episode.
Sorry about that.
But anyway, yeah, man, I mean, in closing, it's just like, we want people to think outside the box. This show is for critical analysis of your own life and figuring out where the fuck am I going and realizing that it is possible.
Well,
you're looking at a couple of guys. We got time to make these happen because we've made sacrifices for years and years and years and years and years to create time to build new opportunities. We're not stuck answering to somebody else when there's a pandemic and a virus and the government's trying to tell everybody to shut down. And we're out here creating new opportunities and creating growth because we were already saying, fuck you to the way things were the last 50 years in the first place. We weren't buying it. We already blew the fucking bubble out of the air years ago.
Yep.
So I'm all fired up.
Love it. Well,
but anyway, man, you do your thing, dude. You guys, we love you. Thanks for tuning in. And remember that, take this fired up perspective into areas of your life and attack and get results, make changes. changing is good. Being uncomfortable is good. So, Mike, as always, my friend, business and buds, we love you all, and we'll see you next time.